Hello, and welcome to Counseling Ethics Lecture 11. My name is Dr. Amber Hughes. In this lecture, I want to talk about informed consent. So first, what is informed consent? Clients have a right to know what they are getting into when they come in for counseling. Informed consent provides them with this information. Counselors provide prospective clients with information that will enable them to make wise choices, including deciding whether to enter into a counseling relationship, choosing the mental health professional who seems best suited to their needs for the type of counseling they need. In providing counseling services, informed consent serves as the contract between the counselor and the client. Counseling services are covered under contract law because a professional in a private practice, or any other organization really, offers services to a recipient for a fee. This contract does not have to be written under contract law in this situation. Simply exchanging money for a service indicates a contract. However, providing a written informed consent document serves to protect both the client and the counselor in the relationship. Though there have been no legal cases involving mental health professionals and informed consent, it is safe to assume that counselors have a legal obligation to obtain informed consent from their clients before they begin treatment with them. This is based on similar precedents set first in the medical field. It is also just best practice to provide a written informed consent document. Informed consent should be delivered in a way the client understands. This means that the language should be understandable. And the language should be simple and understandable at the reading level that your client has. Okay. It also means that the counselor should take time to explain and make sure the client understands the information. Also, HIPAA requires verification or receipt with the client's signature on it. Finally, informed consent is a contract, but it's also a process. This means that you should make sure your client is aware of his or her rights at all times. You may have to remind clients of their rights each session or even throughout sessions. For example, I used to work at an alternative school in a district where the policy was to report drug activity to the administration and parents. Even though that wasn't necessarily the law, and in many cases, it wasn't a matter of harm to self or others, okay? So I wasn't ethically bound to report drug activity. Many of the students I worked with were dealing drugs. I informed them of this policy at the start of our work together, but also made a point to remind students each time I met with them, and sometimes in the middle of the session because they would just forget as they were talking. And so sometimes I would interrupt them because I didn't necessarily need to know, and I wanted to protect their rights. Our student resource officer also experienced this, but he preferred they forget and disclosed drug activity to him, and then he would take that information and investigate it. I didn't want to be seen in the same light as our police officer, the one we had on campus, so I made a point to remind them of their rights often and left the police work to the police officer as best I could. Finally, I want to talk about disclosure statements. Written contracts for informed consent are commonly referred to as disclosure statements. These documents disclose to clients the nature of the counseling relationship they are entering. They are legal contracts. Standard A2B spells out in considerable detail the elements that ethically need to be included in securing informed consent. So some final thoughts. Informed consent is a contract that should be written, but should also be considered a process. And our code of ethics does spell out what should be included in these written disclosure statements that outline informed consent.